Welcome back to this edition of Guild Tremor's Video Strategy Guides. As always, I'm Danton, and I'll be taking you through the fight with the Lich King. I've decided to split this video into two parts due to the length of the video, so be sure to check out part 2 for additional strats. The fight is fairly long and is broken into 3 phases, with 2 transition phases bridging them. Phase 1 begins with the main tank holding the Lich King roughly on top of the location where you zone into his chamber, facing the edge of the platform. Melee stacks up directly behind the Lich King, and range can either stack on the melee or make a group directly to the side of one of the 2 large pillars located near the edge of the platform. The off-tank stands roughly 10 yards in front of the Lich King, facing him. During Phase 1, the Lich King will spawn 2 types of adds, Shambling Horrors and Dredge Ghouls. The Dredge Ghouls are fodder, and the off-tank should try to pick these up using ranged abilities. A rogue using Fan of Knives and Tricks of the Trade is a great asset here, as it makes dealing with one of the Lich King's abilities extremely easy. In addition, you should have your melee DPS be mindful of their AoE abilities, as the off-tank picking up these small ghouls is vital to this phase. Shambling Horrors, on the other hand, are large adds with a high hit point pool, which do a frontal AoE stun. They should be tanked by the off-tank, facing away from the raid. All DPS should ignore these, except for a hunter whose job it is to trank shot their enrage when it comes up periodically. The Lich King himself will utilize 2 spells during the first phase. The first is Infest. This is a shadow ability which applies an ever-increasing dot to everybody in the raid. It will continue to deal damage and increasing amounts of damage until the infected person is brought above 90% health. A Disciplined Priest utilizing Power Word Shield can mitigate most, if not all, of the threat of Infest. We highly recommend bringing one of these to the fight. The other ability the Lich King has is called Necrotic Plague. This is an ability which deals 50,000 shadow damage to its target every 5 seconds for 15 seconds, and jumps to another target when it is dispelled or the target dies. When a player is infected with Necrotic Plague, they should immediately stop what they are doing and run over to the adds which the off-tank is holding, where they should then be cleansed by a single dedicated Dispeller. Cleansing Totem and random dispels from your healers is very likely to cause a wipe, so assign a single person to do this job. The plague should hop between the enemy NPCs, killing them and eventually taking care of the Shambling Horrors. At 70% health, the Lich King will run to the center of the room and cast Relentless Winter. The entire platform, except for the very edge, which is a white area whose border is marked by the gray chasm that runs along the outer edge of the platform, will become a death trap. The entire raid needs to move to this area and separate into 3 groups, roughly 10 to 12 yards away from each other. It is recommended that your healers remain in the middle group, ranged DPS in another, and melee DPS in the third. During this phase, the Lich King will cast Pain and Suffering, a low damage attack, which will deal increasing damage the more times it hits the same target. With 3 groups of raiders, you should target another group before the damage gets too great. He will also spawn Ice Orbs, which will target a random raider, dealing a small amount of damage to them, and will also move slowly towards the raider. If they touch any person, they will explode, knocking nearby players off of the platform and to their death. A single ranged DPS should be assigned to kill these orbs. The final mechanic during this transition phase is the spawning of Raging Spirits. They should be tanked facing away from the 3 groups as they do a frontal AoE silence, and should be DPS down as soon as possible. After 60 seconds, the Lich King will begin to cast Quake. The gray area of the platform will turn blue, and the entire raid needs to immediately run to the center platform as he will destroy the outer edge, dropping any remaining players to their death. I do realize that the video is progressing at a faster rate than I can explain, and I do apologize for that. You'll probably notice that we're well into Phase 2 by now, so I'll attempt to start explaining it a little bit before we switch over to the Part 2 of the video. During Phase 2, the Lich King should be tanked in the center of the platform with the entire raid to one side of him. He will retain his Infest ability from Phase 1, no longer spawn ghouls or use Necrotic Plague, and gains 2 new abilities along with a new ad spawn. The first ability is called Defile. Defile is targeted on a random raider and spawns as a black morass roughly the size of a Consecrate under the raider. Each time it deals damage to anyone within its radius, its damage and size increases. The easiest way to deal with this mechanic is to have a dedicated person watching his cooldown timer on Defile, and with about 2 seconds remaining have the raid scatter and continue to run until the Defile spawns. This will ensure that anyone within it gets out immediately. The second ability that the Lich King will get is called Soul Reaper. This is a debuff put on the current tank that lasts for 5 seconds. When it expires, the target will take roughly 50,000 shadow damage, and the Lich King's physical damage is increased by 100% for a short time. When this debuff is placed on the main tank, the off-tank should immediately taunt the Lich King to prevent the combination of physical attacks and massive shadow damage from killing the main tank. Finally, Valkyr Shadow Guards, 1 in 10 man and 3 in 25 man, will occasionally spawn, picking up random raiders and attempting to carry them off of the platforms. Unfortunately, if I don't stop talking now, I'll run out of useful things to say for the next part of this strategy video, so be sure to check back for part 2 of the continuation of our strategy. In the meantime, thanks for watching our videos. If you have any questions, I do encourage you to post them in the YouTube comment section below, or feel free to visit our website forums at www.feelthetremor.com.